Hey, you're listening to the Lion Sports Talk podcast. It is Thursday, December 29th, 2016. We are approaching New Year's Eve. We are approaching Week 17 of the NFL season with a whole lot to get into. As usual, Thursday night daily fantasy show of the Line podcast. Harbor Mike on the line. Mike, what's up, buddy? Say hi to the friends out there.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas.
We make it a point to not dilly-dally as we have to spend our time wisely like good students in the classroom. So without further ado, my friend, let's just get to class. All right, man. Last week we did our very best to build a team. We tried to put as much together as possible to bring everybody else a winner. I brought myself a couple winners. I think I walked out. It wasn't a lot. Nothing to be excited about. I think I walked out on like the plus 55 side. How did you end up?
I did pretty well, man.
Yeah.
I was in the cheaper entries, so I wasn't winning a lot, but I think out of 15 entries, only 2 didn't money, but my monies were between 10 and I think 22.50, something crazy like that, which would have been $500 if it was in the $25 entry ones.
Yeah, it's tough to pick, and I think the key to that is, you got to get in early. You got to decide what you're going to spend, get into those big entries as fast as you can so you reserve a good spot. It's tough, man. Let's go right into a couple things last week. As far as some full disclosure goes, I want to throw out a little I told you so.
Do it.
I love J.J.
You did. And that was a good call, and I actually took your advice when I was making some lineups, so I appreciate the heads up on that.
Yeah. Well, if you look back, J.J. was our 5-star play last week, and he was only owned in 7%.
That's crazy. And, it's funny because I missed it, and it just shows you the way that fantasy football mindset, everyone missed it. But once you pointed it out and you went back and looked, you're like, dude, he thrashed Buffalo. That's one of his 200-yard games. So he went for 200 on them twice. So, yeah, you almost had to once you thought of it in that way. But look, in our standard league, Cody didn't. I don't think he's very good at fantasy football, but you saw that he didn't really think it much of a Jai. So.
No, he didn't, and he won it all. Or he came in second place. I talked to Team Ward Cleaver. They were the champs. They won the Gracie League this year. Ward brings home the Gracie Trophy. I talked to him tonight as he collected his matchsticks for winnings, and he said he knew he got lucky that Team Anytime did not play Jai.
Yeah, he did.
And he had mentioned that it was the hot pick of the week, and he did thank me for not calling Team Anytime and saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" But he said that right before kickoff, he removed Jai and put in Jonathan Stewart.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have. Again, that's someone who hasn't listened to anything that we've talked about. Or
look, it wasn't a good decision, but I can tell you that last week, had I picked up Charles Clay and put him in a lineup in another league I was in, I was the champ as opposed to second place. It was a $500 mistake.
How about that pick, huh? And then I got to say, and we were in agreement with our New England defense was at the top.
That's right.
My lineups, because I did have a Jai, my quarterback was Tom Brady for most of them, so I was short by Aaron Rodgers' standards by 17 points, but still I got 20 from him. So I was still I had like 6 or 7 lineups out of 15 that were over 150 points. So I took a shit on the kicker. And
Ryan Suckup?
No, I didn't go Suckup. If I'm not mistaken, I think I got 3 points from Seabass.
Yeah, he missed 2 extra points. They were not in field goal position at all during that game. Seabass kicked my ass too in a few of them. Guys like Martellus Bennett laid an egg. I know he found the end zone, but he didn't do anything else the rest of the day. 2 catches, 19 yards, and a touchdown. Without that touchdown, he's a dog. Antonio Gates was the sky pick. It's 6%, 5.8 average. That was the right play. Guys like Amari Cooper, I was so reluctant to plug him into a lineup last week. I didn't want to do it, and neither did anybody else. He was a 7% ownership. But when you see ownerships like that, you kind of want to jump on a guy like Coop if he can score 2 touchdowns. I thought that was the week he was going to get off, but something's wrong with him. He's hurt. Don't start him anywhere anymore the rest of the season.
Yeah, no,
Despite the fact that DC's out, I'm not starting Cooper anywhere ever until next season. He's not healthy. He was wincing every time he made a reach for a ball.
With the quarterback change, it's kind of risky to.
It's a no-brainer now.
Who's going to be the favorite?
That's right. I think the guys that we did miss on were players like Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, we went with Tyler Lockett. That was kind of a luck type thing, I think. Not luck, but that
Lockett was doing fine until he broke his ankle.
Exactly. Lockett actually had a touchdown that they called back.
They did. It was on that play, too.
Yeah, I think so. Because
he was down at the 1. It was the right call.
It was early on, and I saw that double digits, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, here we go. And then I saw the taken away from him, and then I got a message from me that he broke his ankle all in like a 5-minute stretch. I'm like, what?
Yeah. It was brutal. I watched him go down, and I thought, oh, boy, this is the tempo of the day with Mariota, with Lockett, and then I see my boy Derek Carr go down, and the crush. Me and Joey Peeps already whined about it last night, and crushed. But guys like Doug Baldwin, 13 catches, a touchdown, 171 receiving yards, monster day for a guy that was average 4.5% owned in all leagues. 4.5%, 30 fantasy points.
Well, he's always been capable of that. He's had a few games like that last year, and I think not to jump to wide receivers right now for this game, this week, but I think he could produce another pretty solid game based upon who they're going against. They need a win, or they could use one. They don't necessarily need it. But now who's going to be catching the ball since Lockett is gone? That was the byproduct of that week. So.
Well, I guess at any rate, it's week 17. The playoffs have essentially been established with the exception of a couple things. So some games definitely matter, some games don't. I really think my strategy this week is to narrow down as many games that matter as I can into one contest and take the games that don't and wash them out because they're too difficult to predict. I don't know that you're going to find things in there that are going to be diamonds in the rough. I think your strategy is going to be a little bit different, but that's why we're both here, is we both think a little differently on this stuff. And the idea is to try to show every bit of perspective you can to find a winner here. And if you're out there listening and you hear something that makes a little bit more sense to you, take advantage of it and use it as an idea or as a thought and jump on it. I think daily fantasy football in particular is quite a bit like being a defensive back in the NFL, where you just have to have a short memory, but you still have to remember what happened and how it happened. You got to let go of the guys who burned you and realize that you still may have a better matchup with that particular player going forward. And this week, week 17, it's just hard to anticipate what a lot of these teams might do. So let's get to it, man. We got to squeeze this one in tonight as quick as we can. Any injury news out there that we should probably be bringing up?
Not that I can tell so far.
I know offhand, guys like Julio Jones, he remained limited this week, from what I understood. I don't know that you're going to want to chalk him up as a player. I think that Atlanta can't change their position, their playoff seeding at all with a win. So guys like Julio Jones, take a break. Take another week off. Get that toe back to 100%. I take him out of the equation.
Are you sure about that? I think
no,
they can.
I'm not.
They can. They don't. I think they can affect their seeding in whether or not they would have a home field throughout, except for Dallas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know who they're going to lose that to, though.
No, but I mean they do. They have value in winning, to where I could see, because obviously you see New Orleans is pretty good, even though if you look at the stats, they give up points to the wide receiver, and Matty Ice is pretty dominant this year.
Well, Atlanta can't lose that game. I'm looking at the standings right now. Basically, what can happen is if Atlanta loses, then the winner of the Green Bay-Detroit game will have a higher seed potentially. I don't know if they have tiebreakers or not with them, but the Giants are 10-5. The Giants, the Giants absolutely cannot change their seeding.
I know what it is. It's whether or not they get a bye. So they're playing for a bye.
They are. If Atlanta wins, they'll be the number 2 seed in the NFC, and they do get the bye. That's correct. So if they win,
they want that. However,
if they win, they're 11-5. If the Giants win, they are also 11-5. But Atlanta's the division winner with additional points scored, tiebreakers, and a few other things. So you're exactly right. Atlanta will be the number 2 seed. So at least the bye is what they're playing for. That's reason enough to come hard charging.
And New Orleans seems like they're pretty good, shutting down the number 1 wide receiver. Mike Evans has had a much better game last week, but he didn't have these gigantic numbers. And I think you could get 20 points from a lot of different places, or possibly this week. So why risk it when Julio seemed last week like he was, not full speed?
He does not look like he's 100%.
So I'd like to have him out on the field if I was the coach as a decoy, and sure, he'll catch some passes, but he's not going to get you 150 yards and 2 touchdowns this week. They don't need
to.
No,
he's not.
Devonta Freeman
this is a game, too, that if it gets away from Atlanta early, you're still going, you got to fight for that 2 seed. You do. You absolutely do. If they can get ahead early, this is probably a boat race kind of game. Atlanta, New Orleans, it's one of those games where teams are going to play. I'm just Julio Jones his injury has been an issue because he hasn't played well in 6 weeks.
Yeah, I would.
Doesn't know what the end zone looks like.
I'll start him in the playoffs when I expect the first game he plays.
When it's game on, yeah, I agree. I think that is a guy that you have to consider fading. But other injury news, nothing else is jumping out. Nothing major, nothing that nobody else really knows about. Maybe guys like Cameron Brate are on IR, so don't try to lean on them. That's a Buccaneer team that, if they do win, that's what they have to do as part of the series of events that need to happen for them to make the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. If they do, I'll do the show standing on my head, kissing my own ass next week.
Yeah,
there's no way those 7 things are happening.
I didn't realize it was so intricate until I got to the point where it said then there has to be the tie between the...
the Giants and the Redskins have to tie.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's not happening.
Stranger things have happened all in one shot. If you just had one team had to tie this week, then you say maybe, but how many times were there this year? 2 or something like that?
2.
Yeah. So
there were 2. Washington had one of them, but they did that in Great Britain, in London, I think it was. But so let's get started, man. Let's talk about quarterbacks and some value at the quarterback position.
And this week, I tend to think with what we just saw, the guy is red hot, and it's kind of good for our fans in Wisconsin. I'm putting money on Aaron Rodgers. How can you not? The game matters. There's a potential, depending on how all that squirrely shit we just talked about works out, there's a potential that one of these teams don't make the playoffs if they lose. So you got to love that. That brings out the best. That means they're competing, full playbooks, etc. We saw that Minnesota can't stop Aaron Rodgers in his groove. Chicago couldn't stop Aaron Rodgers. So, well, they actually did, excuse me. Seattle couldn't stop Aaron Rodgers. So overall, he seems to be in his groove. I'd like him in the mid-20s. I don't expect 37 points. But if I can get the mid-20s from him this week, considering there's 3 games that I'm even targeting, because I'm kind of on the same vibe as you, he's one of my guys. And on the converse, I think you could also put some money maybe in Matthew Stafford. He hasn't been playing as well lately, but this is going to be a shootout. I almost think it has to be. It's indoors. So that's what you want.
Yeah, I think the Stafford Rodgers play is probably you should stack both of those players. You should also do that in the latest contest. I think that's the 4:30. It's the Sunday main and the Sunday late rather. That I think that's the logical play simply because you are going to eliminate a handful of garbage that's out there for a lot of those early games. I think you try to attack that Sunday late with Rodgers. You still got a lot of games, but you've eliminated some of the BS, and there's BS at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, there is.
There's unpredictable things that can happen, and those unpredictable things are going to be the thing that don't do you any good in those 1 o'clock games. Who knows?
Yeah, overall, it's not worth. Like you said, people who don't have things to play for. So you're going to have what starter, who are you going to start? McFadden, in Dallas and try to be sneaky and have him do, you know what I mean?
It's so unpredictable. This really and truly, this is a week that I think you temper your wallet. You play some games. You don't shoot your wad. You don't go crazy here. Let's take, for example, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're playing Cleveland.